Let's get started standing, rolling our shoulders back before we lift our arms up overhead, and then round the elbows in toward one another and drape over the legs, hanging here. Inhale, come up halfway with a flat back, and exhale, round back over. Sweep the arms out to the sides, coming all the way up, and again, rounding the elbows in, folding forward, and hanging here. Up halfway, exhale down. Let's walk our hands out so we can do our first downward dog of the day. Adding any gentle movement just to help warm up the joints here. Making your way down onto your knees. Let's transition to doing some cat and cow. Allow this movement to be as big or as small as you need it to be. Just one more cycle of cat and cow. Finding your way to a neutral spine. Extending your right arm and left leg up to shoulder and hip height and lowering down. Taking care not to dip the low back all that much as you transition. And then this next time we're going to keep up the right arm and left leg and bending the elbow and the knee in a goalpost shape. Bend and extend. Couple more. And then lowering down. Switching sides. Let's extend left arm, right leg, and get into that goalpost shape, and extend. 3 more, bend, and extend. For 2, last 1, extend, and lower down. Tuck the toes to prepare for our second downward dog, extending our hips up toward the ceiling, reaching our chest to our thighs. Again, adding any organic movement that's coming to mind that your body's telling you need. Articulate through the spine to come into a plank. Pull the lower abdominals back in to come back into that downward dog. Repeat. And back to downward dog. And now plank. Again. This time we'll stay and hold the plank. Really think about the glutes squeezing, pretty much everything activating, but especially the glutes, the abdominals, and then spreading the scapular apart, pressing the floor away. Let's draw our left hand in and rotate to face the right side for a side plank. Options are to stack the feet, stagger, or have the bottom knee bent, reaching that arm up toward the ceiling, really lifting up from underneath. Coming back to plank to transition to the opposite side, planting the right hand a little more toward the center into your version of a side plank. Doing your best to keep your hips and shoulders on the same plane while lifting up from underneath. Bringing that arm down, coming back into plank just for a moment, feeling your core engage, and then lowering the knees down wide for a wide-legged child's pose. Truly allow yourself to just melt into the mat right now, maybe even adding a little tenting if you want some deeper shoulder opening. Transitioning onto the elbows for a forearm plank. This can be done on the knees, not as you just saw me do, but once you extend into the full plank, then lower the knees down. And you're going to want to feel your hip bones sort of pulling up toward your rib cage, feeling the glute squeeze, and having the hips a little lower than you think they should be. Just a little while longer. And then resting for a quick moment. We'll come back into that forearm plank to prepare for some up, up, down, downs, as I like to call them. So we're going to come up on one hand, up on the other, and then down on the forearm, down on the other. You'll see, obviously, there's some rotation happening, but we're still keeping the core very engaged as we do this movement. We go up, up, and down, down. Holding here, adding some challenging forward back motions if you want, and coming down onto the pelvis, lifting your chest into a Sphinx pose to stretch the abdominals. Take a nice little rest here, maybe wiggling your pelvis or bending your knees and windshield wipering, whatever you need right now. Make your way up to your hands and knees, finding the knees right underneath your hips, the hands right underneath your shoulders, elbow creases shining forward as you tuck your toes, and we'll lift the knees. So using the lower abdominals, we hover and lower, lift and lower for 3 and 2. On 1, we're going to hold. Just a little longer. And untuck your toes, sit back for a moment, circling the wrists, reversing direction. Placing your hands behind you, getting set up so you can stretch your chest, lifting your heart open. It should feel really nice across the front of your torso. Noting that if breath starts becoming an issue, you've probably gone too far. Now we'll slowly make our way out of that, gently moving anything you need to move as we make our way onto our hands and knees. Lift your knees back up into what we call a short plank, and we're going to go into shoulder taps, opposite hand to opposite shoulder. So while there is some side-to-side movement that will happen, try to minimize it as much as you can by using more of your core muscles to facilitate that side-to-side movement. Just a few more, and relax. Untucking the toes. Again, let's sit on our heels, intentionally tucking our hips to increase the front of the body stretch. Let's make our way out of this by bringing our hands back down and our knees right underneath our hips, coming onto the forearms, extending the legs into that plank, lifting into a dolphin pose, which is just a downward dog with the forearms down. Really allowing the hips to come forward, maybe even a little more than I'm showing here. Next time we come down, let's hold the pose. Again, ideally the hips would be lower. And now lift up the right leg, hold, switch, extending the left leg, hold, lowering down, widening the knees, coming back into a wide-legged child's pose. Let's walk the hands over to the right, allowing that left rib cage to open. Switching here, walking over to the left. Now let's come back up to our hands and knees to set up for a puppy pose, where we're going to extend our arms forward, melting our heart to the ground. Here, your forehead could be down, or you can lift your chin for a little extra extension in the front of the body. It's very important that you're able to breathe and that this feels comfortable to you. It's also nice if the hips are in line with the knee. We're going to hold this pose for quite a handful more breaths. Keep reaching your heart through the ground to the earth with your sits bones reaching up. Allowing a radial breath if you can, meaning to breathe both not only in the front body, the side, and the back. Just a couple more breaths here. Making our way onto our belly for a quick Sphinx pose and release. Planting your hands by your rib cage, peeling yourself up. Setting up for a rabbit pose. Bring your hands to your heels, holding them, dropping the top of your head to the ground as you lift up your hips and hold on to the heels. This will create a broadening effect in the back, counteracting some of the poses we just did. A couple more breaths here. Allowing your hips to come down, melting your hands by your sides for a traditional child's pose. Gently draw yourself up, and we'll find our way to a cross-legged position. Allow yourself to move however you want to settle in. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, arms down. Inhale, side bend. Coming back to center, over to the other side, and repeat. Flowing here. This time we'll come to center, lift your chest, maybe your chin, and allow yourself to drape over your legs. Getting a little bit of a hip stretch here. Slowly making your way up, switching the legs so that you can now stretch the other side. First lifting the heart before you extend forward. And relax. Start to walk your hands back. And that's it for today. Thanks for joining me.